I remember when the what do they call it? The new Veterans Charter came in 2006, just as we were sending so many young people to Kandahar. And the idea of a lump sum pension was going to be somehow better than a proper full life pension. And I thought about it because, I come from mining country. And in the mines, when you're young, you're indestructible and you start to get injured. But of course, you're young and indestructible. My office is always full of people who are in their 50s and their 40s where the injuries catch up. And obviously, that was going to happen coming out of the war. So we had people who got injured in 2005, as you pointed out, and they got a whole different deal than 2007. How is it that we could get away, Canada could get away with doing something so obviously shortchanging people who are actually going into combat?
So when I go like this, and I look at my rank, and I'm like a Master Corporal at that point in time, we knew we were getting shortchanged, and we knew it would have lifelong impacts. But we still did the missions anyways. We weren't fully cognizant or aware of the scope or breadth of the change. As a matter of fact, nobody was. Nobody was aware of how much of an impact the NVC would have on those suffering from injuries of whatever it is, or that needed care after service. Okay, the impact of that wasn't known until recently, and so I guess I don't really have an answer for that other than what I just said. Is if we would have known what we know now that we should have known then, it would have been dumped. But for someone somewhere, there was a benefit. For someone somewhere, it sounded like a good idea. And as I said for you, as I said for the Canadian government right now, the impact for everybody here is you're seeing these changes now. You're seeing that there's a recruiting problem for all uniformed services. But for national defense, it is a big, big problem. You're getting a higher turnover. When you get a higher turnover, you have a lot more brain drain. You have a lot less ability to have that experience to go from one mission to the next mission, from one war or conflict or whatever it is to the next, and take those experiences to keep the casualty rates low, to keep the injuries low. Gulf War was a phenomenal success because you had people that had 30 years of experience that went in and led that stuff, that did these things. So Mr. Summers went in with how many years of experience prior to? Now imagine somebody only going in with 10 years experience leading in a whole combat team or a brigade or a division. You're going to have a lot of casualties regardless. So again, with this new Veterans Charter, it is affecting, and we're seeing the long-term effects of recruiting and morale. Does that answer your question, sir?
Yes, I guess it's because it's compounded by, the weasel language. I remember the veteran who stopped me at the Cobalt Legion, and I thanked him for his service, and he said, "For what?" I said, "Well, you fought in the Korean War." And he goes, "Aha, I fought in the Korean War, but it wasn't a war." And I said, "What do you mean?" He goes, "It was a police action." And I said, "What does that mean?" And he goes, "Well, that was the weasel language that robbed me of a proper pension." Right. And I remember the fight to change that, but now we've got special duty, we've got all kinds of language. But the fact is, you're facing combat, and I think of the situation at Medak Pocket, which was, the biggest land battle the Canadians fought since Korea, and it was heavily traumatic. I don't even know what language they used for that, but that was war. That was full-on war. And yet people come home, those units were broken up. They were not recognized for what they were done. You talk about the fine print. The fine print has to be that when you serve the country, we look after you. It should be that simple, whatever the cost, because the cost is paid, and it has been paid in the lives of the people that we send to represent us, to do the best, which they always do.
Mr. Angus, you talked about something there, and I'm sorry, but I have to say this now before I forget, is we will never leave a soldier behind. However, the Canadian Armed Forces and Veterans Affairs, or the Government of Canada, the way they word it right now, will abandon your ass. No problem. to save money because it comes down to money. At the end of the day, the only thing we can think of is the new Veterans Charter. When we look at the two numbers, are very, very different. When we look at the levels of service provided, it looks very different. And it's all to say, at the end of the day, it really, truly had to have come down to, the only way it makes sense is it had to come down to save some money.
Absolutely.
But at the end of the day, you're going to pay more to recuperate and to fix that problem than if you just left it the way it was properly the first time.
Right. Okay, thank you so much.